So as I said, it's been now more than a week now. 7 days have now gone by since the US launched Operation Epic Fury. But the uncertainty over how the situation is going to continue in the coming days still is uncertain, still is a question mark. Now, while the US continues launching its attacks, the questions in the objective of the US still remain unanswered. What was the objective in the first place? Was it to destroy Iran's nuclear capabilities, missile capabilities, or was it to change the regime altogether? Because now Donald Trump seems to have privately shown serious interest in the US ground troops in Iran. Earlier, this suggestion was possibly ruled out, but it seems that President of the United States has privately expressed serious interest in deploying the US troops on the ground inside Iran. Now, according to what we are learning from reports that suggest that with the knowledge of these conversations, it is being said that President Trump seems to have discussed the idea of deploying boots on ground with the aides and Republican officials outside the White House while outlining his vision for a post-war Iran in which Iran's uranium is secured and the US and the Iranian regime cooperate on oil production, similar to how US and Venezuela, according to sources that has now been reported. So Srinjoy is with us. Mr. Sajjanhar is also joining us here on the broadcast. Good morning to you, sir. Srinjoy, a quick understanding from you, because this was something that was ruled out in a way, because President Trump in a way was invoking the people of Iran to, rise up and get the regime change. However, is he now expressing serious interest in deploying ground troops? Because they have not focused on a large-scale invasion of Iran, but rather than the idea of a contingent of US troops that would be used for specific strategic purposes. What does it mean?
Well, first of all, so far there has been no talk about troops on the ground. You have 3 aircraft carriers. You have other warships, but there is no Marine Expeditionary Force. Now, after 8 days, there is talk of boots on the ground. Now, this is something that is still under discussion, you would imagine, because if there are boots on the ground, then there are bound to be losses. You see Iran, it's a country of 90 million people. It's a large country. To secure even the strategic locations, it's not going to be easy. And once you have boots on the ground, there are targets. The best example for that has been Iraq, the neighboring country, Iraq. Also, is this something Trump's own supporters, the MAGA people, are they very happy with that? That's another question that has to be seriously looked at. Because Trump, when he came to power this time, made it very clear that he didn't want any involvement of any American troops in foreign wars. That's one of the things he spoke about. Of course, with the president, he has been unpredictable. His son has publicly spoken about how unpredictable his father is. So as a result, now, for the first time in 8 days, there is talk of boots on the ground. But there is something that has to be looked at here. How effective will they be in a country that is basically hostile? And assuming that they are on the ground, they will certainly be targets. Now, if that is so, then will the American people accept that for a long period of time?
All right. Mr. Sajjanhar, what is your understanding? Because we have seen the consequences as far as US troops on the ground, be it in Afghanistan, be it in Iraq, be it in other locations as well. Do you believe that Iran is now headed in the same way? Because the US press secretary, the White House press secretary, completely seems to be denying that there is no such talks or discussions that have ever seems to have taken place with the president. But is the idea still, in a way that the president can actually approach at a later stage?
Yeah, thank you very much, Amita, for having me. I would tend to agree with all that Srinjoy has said, because this is compounding error by another blunder, I would think. Because when President Trump went in for the bombing of Iran by both his own Air Force and Israel, and also stationing these two big aircraft carrier groups, battle groups in the waters in the vicinity of Iran. The idea was that, these initial strikes would be able to completely decapitate Iran, and there would be an upsurge against the ruling Islamic leadership. And the people would come out on the streets. That has not happened. So that is why I think there is this talk of putting boots on the ground, because in no other place have just airstrikes been able to deliver results in terms of a change of regime. So what the news seems to be emanating from the United States is that there is division within the Trump cabinet, while the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, appeared to be in favor of sending troops, ground forces to attack and to take over the country and to acquire oil, because that seems to be a big interest as far as Mr. Trump is concerned. Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, is opposed to it. So I guess the whole thing is balanced in the middle. But at least talk is happening on this subject, which earlier was not, was something.
Correct, sir, because now it seems that the clear objective, what could it possibly be? Because if regime change is the possibility and Trump invoking and urging the people of Iran, that doesn't seem to be happening on ground, because they seem to have decided on the succession plan as well. But Donald Trump, he says that he needs to be involved, very much involved, as to who would be now leading Iran next, because he has now laid down his plan and ideas to make Iran great again, as he says. Now it seems that even as this war has been raging, President Trump seems to have patted himself on the back, rating his strikes on Iran, where he says on a scale of 0 to 10, he was asked to rate. And he says that it has gone beyond the expectations. He says that I would rate it around 12 to 15. Donald Trump, the president, has now been claiming and saying that the entire military force of Iran, whether be it their navy, their communication, their leaders, their air force, has been completely wiped out in the last 1 week.
By the way, in Iran, we're doing very well. Somebody said, how would you score it from 0 to 10? I said, I'd give it a 12 to a 15. Their army is gone. They're just about, look, their navy is gone. Their communications are gone. Their leaders are gone. 2 sets of their leaders are gone. They're down to their 3rd set. Their air force is wiped out entirely.
Now, as far as this U.S. war offensive is now concerned, it seems to be gaining a lot of momentum, where America's epic fury now seems to be raining on Iran. And this is a big statement that is now coming from the U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, where he seems to be saying that tonight would be the biggest bombing campaign. Srinjoy, why a Treasury Secretary seems to be making such kind of a statement?
Well, he has. And the point is that this is a situation where the bombing campaign is specifically aimed at one part of Iran's arsenal. As President Trump says, the Navy is gone, the Air Force is gone, the nuclear installations are gone. So what is left are the missile launching sites, the missile capabilities. Because if anything, the Iranians have struck with their missiles. Now, not only have they hit refineries, which will hurt, therefore, the whole world, because oil prices will go up, and this will hurt the world. And they calculate that there will be pressure from other countries to stop the war, because oil prices are escalating, which is why they've hit refineries. They've hit other places like that, not to speak of launch sites and other things, the American bases and so on, and Israel, of course. Now, The idea is to hit missile launching sites. Idea is to hit manufacturing sites where these missiles are manufactured. So if you hit these sites, there'll be fewer attacks, fewer missile attacks on Israel, on refineries, on places like Dubai and Abu Dhabi, on the American bases, all of that. So if that happens, if that happens, then there will be fewer attacks. That is the calculation.
All right, because the Treasury Secretary making that announcement saying that we will do the most damage to Iranian missile launchers and the factories that they build these missiles, and the biggest of the campaigns of destruction on part of US is yet to happen.